Hello to all. Happy Sunday. It's been a week, to say the least. Transgender Awareness Week was a long week, and I think that has to do with just the state of the world. Really, I'm optimistic that many people know already. I will lead this with important information as to why dwell on it and all other forms of advocacy need to continue to happen. Is 2021 has been acknowledged as the deadliest year on record for murders against trans individuals. Off the top of my head, in 2019 it was 331, in 2020 it was 350, and in 2021 it's 375 reported worldwide. The specific details as to where that information can be found, if you're part of my personal mailing list, I've been doing some advocacy work, and I uploaded a personal project to my YouTube page. It's a 2-hour-long spiel, broken into chapters, though, of course, which certainly helps watch. But it's a full-out story, right? And if you haven't seen it, please check it out. Please join the hundreds that have already looked at it. Right? It's great. I love it, and I'm optimistic to share that information. But yeah, the reporting that's been used from TBT was, instead of using a full fiscal year or calendar year, pardon me, the reporting year that they use is October to September, which makes sense because then it also gives time to process the data and have it released before November. But nonetheless, so over the period of 12 months, it has continued to increase. And so last year was the highest on record. I'd love to start off with something fun, but these are important things to talk about. Stuff like this has to be made aware, and I've affirmed this regularly, that uncomfortable conversations create change. So by hearing this and getting uncomfortable, I am optimistic. It is inspiring to understand why things have to be that visible. Things don't just magically get better without work. Otherwise, it's been a week, and so here's optimism that things will go better. Anyway, that's a spiel, right? Let's dive into dwell on it. Let's get into this here. I hope everyone's had a great week. Otherwise, it's been a ride. It's been a ride. How many sexual partners have you had in the past? That's pretty blunt. I lost track, honestly. Like, even in a pre-transition life, like I never was one for like one night stands or whatever, but just a bunch of failed relationships. I wish I could put a number to that. It's not a single digit number. It's definitely not in the hundreds. I don't know. That's a really forward question. I accepted the question because, like, I'm transparent, right? I've had sex. I'm an adult. I'm 40. If you ask me how many intimate partners I've had, now that's bringing it down significantly to like certainly less than 10. But there's a big difference between that for me. And a lot of times when it would be just, rarely was I having sex for having sex, but trying to just connect. And more often than not, it never worked. So by more often than not, it never worked, I mean ultimately none of them ever worked. Because here I am, single. That's a pretty straight up question. I'm not gonna dodge it. It's kind of like forward though. I'm not gonna lie. But whatever. That's part of dwell on it, right? Throw the questions out there, and I'll have at them. You can't hurt me. So, speaking of, is being transgender good or bad in your life? Why? Well, if we were watching the beginning of this episode, I think that's a little bit of a nudge as to how to answer that question already, but I'll answer it directly now. Please allow me to reframe this question slightly. First, acknowledging and accepting myself is the best thing that I have ever done. It's the best thing that I will ever do. By accepting me for me, the rest of my life is the best day of my life. Every day is the best day of my life. After the day that I accepted myself, every day has been the best day of my life. And that has nothing to do with being transgender. Self-love. Being transgender is part of my form of self-love. I accept that, and I'm ecstatic with myself for accepting myself. Now, let's talk about the world around me. The world around me loves to wave the flags, right? And loves to say the things about, positive affirmations of being inclusive for trans individuals, and even, giving like myself and peers and other transgender individuals and allies platforms to speak on transgender-based issues, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. And those are all fine, and they're not appreciated. The challenge is it's still not enough, right? Because there's only so much that individuals like myself can do. And there needs to be so much more work from our peers and from our allies to help not only amplify the message, but to help carry the luggage, to realize that there's lots. I mentioned right at the top that I uploaded a personal project on my YouTube page, and in part of it, I got hot. If you haven't seen it, there's a couple parts where I got hot, kind of like the same as the last video, Salty Taylor's Best Taylor, and yeah, I was getting salty, and in a survey in 2018, in a Canadian, like a Government of Canada something survey, 0.24% of respondents identified themselves as transgender. That was not the same results as the census that we had in 2021, but regardless, the number that I can only use now based on that survey is 0.24, even though that there's constant estimates of 0.5, 0.6% of individuals as trans, but this is one of like the actual first times that there's like numbers associated with people identifying themselves as trans in Canada. So part of what I was saying in my video, so 0.24% of Canadians being trans over the age of 15. But then with that, looking at individuals who voted openly for PPC, which is very clearly on their platform, transphobic, anti-trans, and so on and so on. And over 5% of Canada who voted for PPC. So out of 0.24% of Canadians who allowed themselves to identify themselves as transgender, and then 5% of Canadians who, in their perfect world, transgender individuals don't have safety and protection from hate, that essentially is a 20-on-1 fight. Individually, for every trans individual out there, there are 20 Canadians who would be more than happy to eliminate their visibility, eliminate their authenticity, eliminate their worth. There are people who voted for that. And that goes to the bad part. There are not enough people who understand that that is important for people to think and to recognize that if you were out with me, let's say we were out having, either we're going out for food, or we're at karaoke, or whatever it would be. Statistically, for me, there are 20 people around us who wish I wasn't there. Think about that. Think about that. So that's the bad. It's not bad being trans. The people who do not accept trans individuals for existing make it difficult. And make it more difficult than it has any right to be. The people who argue trans validity in sports, the people who argue trans validity in just their reality, that's nothing about whether or not it's good or bad being trans. It dictates the quality of life. One thing that I know, and this is something that I hope for so many of my peers, it took me a long time to get to this, and I hope that everybody can achieve something similar as well, but also understanding there are things you can control and there's things you can't. I cannot control people's personal behaviors, and so I accept that. What I can control is influencing policies and platforms to make sure that it mitigates that negative, hateful voice. Those are things I can control. I can't control the population that hates me, but I can control the decision makers to ensure that safer spaces exist for me. So that's a really long way to answer that question, but I hope it kind of answered it somewhat. I love being me. I've spent 39 years of my life trying to be somebody I wasn't, and I've never loved myself more than I do today, and there's no way that is a bad thing. It'd be great if everyone else in the world recognized that everyone is allowed to have their own agency and independence, and they're valid for that. It's been a long week. I was in a, let's put it this way, the guest speaker is not a fan of the term networking, and they strongly prefer building relationships, and so let's call it a building relationships Zoom call earlier in the week with Pride at Work Canada, which was fantastic. It was great to be able to participate in that. An individual in that was also like pointing out that realistically every week is Trans Awareness Week, so I hope that that helps explain why it has been a long week. This is a long week. What makes this grassroots group so special for me to care about? Well, on a roll. See above. Wow. Because the world is not kind. I almost want to just transplant that YouTube video that I uploaded for Trans Awareness Week, and I almost want to like just drop it in here and sit everyone and be like, here, watch this, watch all of it. Because the amount of information that was provided was like sad statistics and police and COVID and then health and then government and sports and the war against trans kids and the media and then like what can allies do to help. And so similarly when it comes to Higher Weller, it's a medium to amplify the concern. Look at it this way: in Manitoba, like our leadership, our provincial leadership is actively blowing anti-trans dog whistles with their behaviors. These are things that require awareness and conversation. And going right back to what I was just saying about 20 against 1, and the most important part, and I really feel like I'm echoing a lot of the stuff from my upload, but they're analogies that make sense. It's 20 against 1. 20 people against 1. Every single moment that I wake up, there are 20 people who wish that I didn't wake up. Or 20 people who wish they can do harm upon me and not have any criminal penalty to that, right? That's not a passive thing. Those are people who actively would like to remove trans individuals from visibility. And allies, in principle, to be like, yeah, no, I'm not transphobic, therefore I'm helping make things better. But you're not. Because just not being discriminatory is about as valuable as being invisible. There have to be individuals to stand up and stand against those 20. And an analogy that I used in my video was, let's pretend we go to a sporting event. I'm going to sound almost verbatim, but it rings with me here. But let's pretend we go to a sporting event, wrestling, and I'm in the ring, and then there's 20 TERFs and transphobes and whatnot in the other corner, and then you have an opportunity to decide where to go when it comes to wrestling. It'd be great if you hopped in the ring and got in my corner, but more often than not, allies are they're sitting in the stands. They got front row seats, but what they're doing is they're waving their foam fingers. And they've got signs saying, boo transphobes, transphobes are the worst, but they're not fighting. They're expressing their dismay to hateful individuals. But that's the thoughts and prayers thing, right? Let's put it this way. If you're not actively punching me in the face, I'm going to imagine that you're cool with me. I don't need you to remind me you're cool with me. I need you to start punching them in the face. And so this is what that grassroots group's about. Punching back against hate. Don't just hear trans individuals and be like, okay, I understand your concern and I will be more mindful about how I, operate, which is good. But it's like I can think of so many analogies but to just passively observe while it's the trans individuals doing all the legwork to just affirm their validity. That's why this grassroots group's so special, because it's another medium and another voice and another method to raise awareness, to share messages, to help people understand that it's serious. This isn't just about me giving you 30 minutes of something to watch. I do hope you become educated from it, right? Every single person that watches these things, and then like the questions that are said, and they be like, oh, that's interesting, or that's kind of neat. All right, like it's to understand my worldview. Those are fundamental values, and I want that to continue, right? And whether you're eating dinner, you're watching this with a partner, you're eating your popcorn, whatever it is, like I hope that whatever is happening that allows this to resonate with you is great. But if all that happens is that when you're done watching this, you swipe or scroll or whatever it is to the next thing on Instagram, it's not enough. That it needs to get understood that you hear this and be like, I gotta help Taylor. I gotta help my friends. I gotta get my other friends to help Taylor. And this goes back to what I was saying with the wrestling. You get in the ring with me. You help me out. And so instead of it being 1 against 20, it's 2 against 20. So 1 against 10 each. But it doesn't end there, because I've been reaching out to my peers, but this is kind of the point. Just because I happen to know somebody doesn't mean they're automatically like copacetic with my needs. It's pretty unfortunate. It's really unfortunate when you realize how many people all of a sudden forget that you're a human being, and sometimes that as a human being you need to get not just yourself picked up, but you recognize that they are of a group of individuals who need that support from people who have the privilege to influence that conversation to others. But not only do you get in the corner with me and you help out, but you get on the phone and you call your friends. You call 18 friends, and then those 18 friends call their friends, and hopefully they all bring 18 each. Because 20 against 20 still isn't right, because then all that means is that hate ends up running into just a sense of neutrality where it's allowed to exist but not permiss, right? To end hate, you need to suppress it. That's why this grassroots group is important. To give visibility to suppress hate. To stand up against, shitty governments that allow hate passively and actively, as a matter of fact. That's why it's important. I hope that answers that. I know I squirreled around an answer, and I lean on the fact that it's been a long week. Others need to do more. This is nice. Top 2 love languages. Oh, that's so nice. I actually referenced love languages earlier today. It was nice, right? So it's nice to just see that come back. That's actually one of my favorite books. Just because I was talking about it. It's called The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. There are a few edits of it and whatever. I love the book, and one thing I love about the book, as a matter of fact, is the language, or like if you look at it the right way, you can actually also interpret the power of every topic in a way that it doesn't necessarily need to be about an intimate relationship, because it can also involve, whether it's personal relationships or if it's business relationships or whatnot, because love is as a word itself, right, is incredibly powerful, but also fundamentally it's about connection and communication. And so being able to understand that just because you're speaking in a way that makes sense to you doesn't necessarily mean that the other person's not receiving that, like dismissing you, I should say, but they're literally not hearing your language. You're literally talking to them in a foreign language, and because it's not getting reciprocated or communicated, that's where the barriers come in. Well, let's recap the 5 love languages. Great. Now let's see if I remember. Quality time, physical touch, acts of service, words of affirmation, and gifts. I do remember in a past when I took a quiz for it, it was quality time and physical touch. I do kind of float sometimes with, things that are important to me. Words of affirmation, and I think it's not necessarily because of the one topic, because I guess I can kind of turn it all around. Quality time is huge for me. It's always huge for me. Quality time is huge for me. I think I can say confident that physical touch is likely the next one. Quality time is definitely number 1. Physical touch would be the next one. Acts of service I enjoy, but the challenge with that is for me to appreciate an act of service, it means a lot to me if it's kind of what I need, and not have to generate joy out of an attempt. Does that make sense? And I don't want to, dismiss the effort of others about anything, right? And so that's part of the reason why lots of times that I'm like, no, I'll just take care of it, whatever it is, because I'm like, here's the goal that I want to see, and I'm going to spell it out for you. And if it's not going to be followed to the letter, then just please allow me to do it. Words of affirmation, I love that. Words of affirmation is really important to me too, but I also kind of they're not the same, but I allow myself to interpret it as quality time, embedded within that, because good, meaningful quality time would usually involve complimentary talk to your partner as well. So that kind of goes hand in hand, but even just getting a nod or a nudge from someone is meaningful, but it certainly isn't the fuel for my vehicle, right? I know that I'm doing well, and I know that I'm doing good things, and I know this and I know that, but I do love knowing that I'm on someone's mind. That's easy. But yeah, quality time, and I'd say physical touch, easy, would be the top 2. Gifts, I was talking about gifts not too long ago, actually. I get gifts as I need them, or I get myself what I need as I need them. So gifts are important to me, So long as they represent like an understanding of who I am as an individual, like to look into it, and then with that, that's where I kind of again loop that back into quality time, because that person wouldn't know that perfect gift without spending that quality time with me to get to know me better, right? So see how they kind of overlap in there. Yeah, that's it. That's a fun question. That was a nice little twist around on that. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of that book. If you haven't read it yet, please do. It's great for everybody. It's an easy read too. I'm not saying everyone needs something easy to read, but it's literally like, at least the copy I had was, good size, big print, whatever. But it was good. When did you last cry in front of another person by yourself? Well, I don't cry often, but I do cry more than I've ever used to. Because Esther did. So I really can't think of when I cried by myself, like specifically as a date. I know that there's some things just with people who are important to me that they're going through, whether it's just dealing with the pandemic, or just dealing with some issues in their own personal life that I've been trying to help support and whatnot, and think about them, and and they mean a lot to me. And so it's, when you see they're going through some hardships, it's pretty easy to cry about that. Even though it's like, well, in those cases it'd be by myself, and I'm not gonna lie, it's not like a full out sob fest or anything like that, but it's just kind of a moment where you whether it's like I wish I can understand this person's position better, or like I wish I can do more to help this person get out of this situation, or whatever it would be. And when I went to crisis, a friend of mine took me to crisis, and that it was we're getting close to 2 years ago, but I remember that I was just trying to establish myself in life, and just kind of make sense of what was going on, because I felt like I was losing control of my life, and asked her to come over, and she knew that was important. And by the way, I know that my head's down for the majority of this. It's been a long week, and I think about others, and that's why I get so feisty about like trans rights and whatever, because there are like, I'll flip the tables. I don't mind flipping the tables, but it's just so unfortunate that we're in a world where the tables have to continually be flipped. But anyway, that I asked my friend to come over, and she knew that it was important, because at the time, and this is pre-COVID too, so even after the time, I haven't invited people over much since, right? But otherwise, in principle, especially before I came out, I did not have anybody over ever, and it was because this was my safe space, right? This is where I didn't feel like I needed to like explain why I would have makeup remover on the bathroom counter and whatever, right? Like this was my safe space where I was allowed to just have me exist, even though I wasn't anything close to full time or whatever. And she knew that, like, she's been a friend of mine for years, and she knew that by me asking her to come over, it was really important. It was really important. And so she came over, and I was a mess. I was just a puddle on the carpet, and that's what led to her suggesting to take me to the CRC, which led to the CSU, which led to a handful of steps, and then next thing you know, out comes the Phoenix. So it was probably my best cry that I've had in front of another person, because the results that ultimately came from that were the best thing that I can ever have for myself. So it's important to learn vulnerability. Learn vulnerability as early as possible, because it'll save your life. This was not as salty as the last episode. I believe unintentionally heavy, and I think it's because just the weight of the week is not light. I don't like to like just flout, hey, go see my stuff on the Higher Weller channel. But please, if you have not seen it yet, create the time to watch the YouTube video that I uploaded. It's called Transgender Awareness Week. Very simply, to take a quote from Anna Murphy, is progress takes time, but it should not end with us going back in time. It's not a short watch. As I mentioned, it's 2 hours. And for what it's worth, it got trimmed from 3. And it does have chapter markers. And so even if that means you've watched 20 minutes one day a week, or whatever, and get a better understanding as to the world that's going on, please do that. Otherwise, back to the question about why is this group important, everything that I mentioned. And so with that goes right back to everybody who's watching this. Please help act. Please get engaged. Please get your peers to get engaged, like, more, right? Like, there's lots for everybody to do. There's never a situation where it's like, I don't know if if there's anything I can do to help. Yes, you can. Just ask. Everybody is valuable, because the messaging still needs to get done. That's how I'm gonna end this one. With yesterday being Transgender Day of Remembrance, I'd like to end this one on a reminder of the violence that is happening in our world globally against trans individuals. And so please watch that video and understand why TDOR exists and what can be done so that TDOR will still exist, but will not have anywhere near as many names and numbers attached to it on a growing rate. This is the time that you have to act. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for watching this. Please share this message. Feel free to, if you're following on Insta, or if you're subscribing on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe. Let me know that you did that, and let's just keep spreading the message. Build this team. Help fill the ring. Help fill the ring. Don't show up with your foam finger. I don't want it. I don't want your foam finger. I want you in the ring with me. And that's really important. So help me out, and help trans individuals out, help the community out, and help everybody who lost their lives because of trans-based hate, and their families and their peers, and everyone that's important to them.